Have you ever lost someone and then felt their presence become stronger after they were gone? Have you ever noticed that the people who truly regret losing you rarely say it directly? Most people imagine regret as a dramatic apology, a late-night phone call, a desperate message, a confession filled with tears, but real regret is usually much quieter than that. It hides in silence. It disguises itself as indifference. It appears in small behaviors that most people overlook. Imagine this: a person once had complete access to your life. They knew your habits, your laughter, your fears, your dreams. Then one day, for whatever reason, they let you go. Maybe they thought they would easily replace you. Maybe they assumed you would always be there. Maybe pride convinced them that walking away was the right choice. But time has a strange way of revealing value. What once felt ordinary suddenly becomes irreplaceable. And when that realization arrives, regret begins its silent work. The fascinating part is that regret doesn't always make people come back. Sometimes it makes them watch from a distance. Sometimes it makes them mention your name when you're not around. Sometimes it makes them compare everyone to you without even realizing it. Tonight we're going to explore the silent signs that reveal someone deeply regrets losing you. Not the obvious signs, the hidden ones, the psychological clues that expose what words often conceal. And by the end of this journey, you may realize that some people have been carrying the weight of losing you for far longer than you ever imagined. Part 1. They keep finding ways to stay connected to your life. Before we continue to the next sign, analyze this part carefully and tell me to continue. There is an ancient observation often attributed to human nature. People rarely monitor what no longer matters to them. Think about that. When something loses value in our minds, our attention naturally moves elsewhere. We stop checking, we stop wondering, we stop caring. Yet when someone regrets losing you, something unusual happens. They become unable to completely disconnect. Perhaps they still watch your social media stories. Perhaps mutual friends casually mention that your name somehow keeps appearing in conversations. Perhaps they seem strangely informed about events in your life, despite having no direct contact with you. Why? Because regret creates curiosity, and curiosity is often the shadow of emotional attachment. Carl Jung once suggested that what remains unconscious continues to influence us. A person may convince themselves they are over you. They may repeat it 100 times, but their behavior reveals a different truth. Deep inside, they are still trying to answer a question: what if I made a mistake? That question becomes a silent companion. Every achievement you make becomes evidence of what they lost. Every moment of growth forces them to reconsider their decision. Imagine someone who sold a rare painting for a small amount, only to discover years later that its value had multiplied beyond imagination. The painting is gone, but the thought remains. The mind revisits the decision again and again. This is how regret often works in relationships. The person may not reach out. They may never admit their feelings, but they keep looking through the window of your life because a part of them is still emotionally invested in what they left behind. And the deeper the regret, the harder it becomes to completely look away. Part 2. They compare everyone to you, even when they don't mean to. Before we continue to the next sign, analyze this part carefully and tell me to continue. One of the most painful discoveries a person can make is realizing that replacements are easier to imagine than they are to find. When someone leaves, they often believe life will simply continue. They assume another connection will appear, another conversation, another relationship, another person who will provide the same comfort, understanding, and emotional safety. But life rarely works that way because people are not products, they are experiences, and every meaningful person leaves behind a unique emotional fingerprint. At first, the person who lost you may feel confident in their decision. The future looks full of possibilities. New faces arrive, new conversations begin. Yet something strange starts happening. The laughter feels different. The connection feels weaker. The understanding feels incomplete. And without realizing it, they begin comparing everyone to you. Not because they want to, because the mind naturally compares the present with what once felt meaningful. A new person listens to them, but not the way you did. Someone supports them, but not with the same depth. Someone stays, but somehow it doesn't feel the same. This is where regret quietly grows. The philosopher once observed that people often fail to appreciate what they possess until distance reveals its value. Distance creates perspective, and perspective often creates regret. The person begins remembering things they once ignored: your patience, your loyalty, your effort, your presence during difficult moments. The qualities that seemed ordinary when you were there suddenly become extraordinary after you're gone. And this realization is deeply uncomfortable because it forces them to confront a difficult truth. They didn't lose you because you lacked value. They lost you because they failed to recognize your value in time. This is why some people become trapped in an endless cycle of comparison. Every new relationship becomes measured against memories they thought they had left behind. Every connection reminds them of something missing. And the cruel irony is that the more they search for your replacement, the more they become aware that you were never replaceable in the first place. That awareness is not love. It is not obsession. It is regret. A quiet, persistent regret that follows them into every future connection. And unlike sadness, regret has a habit of growing stronger with time. Part 3. They react when you truly move on. Before we continue to the final sign, analyze this part carefully and tell me to continue. Many people believe regret begins when a relationship ends. But psychologically, that's often not true. At first, the person who left still feels a sense of control. Even if you're no longer together, they secretly assume they could return if they wanted. They believe the door remains unlocked. And as long as that belief exists, the loss doesn't feel completely real. But then something changes. You stop waiting. You stop looking back. You stop hoping. You begin rebuilding your life. And suddenly, the person who left you notices something unexpected. Your energy has changed. Your focus has shifted. Your world no longer revolves around them. This is when reality strikes. Not when they left, when they realize you've actually moved on. Psychologists often describe human beings as valuing certainty more than they realize. People become attached not only to relationships, but also to access. The knowledge that someone is still emotionally available creates comfort. When that availability disappears, regret often emerges with surprising intensity. It's like standing in front of a door you've ignored for years, only to discover it's permanently closed. You never intended to walk through it. But knowing you can't changes everything. This is why some people suddenly reappear after months or years of silence. Not necessarily because they want a relationship, but because they are confronting the reality of what they lost. Your growth becomes undeniable proof that life continued without them. Your happiness becomes evidence that you no longer need their validation. And that realization can awaken emotions they spent years suppressing. The truth is simple. People rarely understand the value of a chapter until they realize they can never reopen the book. And when they see you moving forward without them, regret stops being a possibility. It becomes a certainty. Part 4. They begin remembering you better than reality. Before we reach the end of this journey, there is one final truth about human psychology that few people understand. Memory is not a recording. Memory is a storyteller. And storytellers have a habit of rewriting the past. When a relationship ends, people often focus on the negatives, the arguments, the misunderstandings, the disappointments. the reasons they convince themselves to walk away. This helps them justify the loss. It protects them from emotional pain. But time changes the narrative. The sharp edges of old conflicts begin to soften. The emotional wounds fade. And what remains are the moments that once brought warmth, comfort, and meaning. Suddenly, they remember your smile more than your flaws, your kindness more than your mistakes, your presence more than your imperfections. The philosopher observed that human beings often understand the value of things only after they are gone. What seemed ordinary yesterday becomes precious today. This is why regret often grows stronger as years pass. Not weaker, stronger, because the mind begins collecting evidence of what was lost. A song reminds them of you. A place reminds them of you. A conversation reminds them of you. Even the smallest details become emotional triggers, and over time they realize something profound. You were not simply a person who entered their life. You became part of the story they tell themselves about who they are. That is why some people never completely forget certain individuals, not because they are stuck in the past, but because some losses become permanent reference points. You become the standard by which they measure trust, the lesson by which they understand love, the memory that quietly follows them through different seasons of life. And when this happens, regret reaches its deepest form. Not the regret of losing a relationship, but the regret of losing a rare human connection that may never happen again. So, what are the silent signs this person regrets losing you? They keep finding ways to stay connected to your life. They compare others to you and come up empty. They react when they realize you've truly moved on. And eventually, they begin remembering you better than reality itself. But here's the most important lesson of all. This video was never really about them. It was about you. Because too many people spend years trying to prove their worth to those who fail to see it. Too many people wait for apologies that never arrive. Too many people postpone their healing while hoping someone else will recognize their value. The wisdom of reminds us that your worth does not depend on another person's recognition. A diamond remains a diamond, even in the hands of someone who mistakes it for a stone. If someone regrets losing you, that realization belongs to them. It is their lesson, their burden, their awakening. Your responsibility is different. Your responsibility is to continue growing, to continue healing, to continue becoming the person you were always meant to be. Because the most powerful moment in life is not when someone realizes your value. It is when you realize it yourself. And perhaps tonight, as this video comes to an end, ask yourself one question. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below with the word forward, because some chapters are meant to teach us, not keep us. And remember, sometimes the greatest revenge is not making someone regret losing you. It's becoming so complete within yourself that their regret no longer matters.